The Ink and Paint Club podcast is intended for mature audiences only, so don't tell your parents! Listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to the Ink and Paint Club podcast, your weekly home for animation reviews and discussions.
Alrighty, everybody! Welcome to the Ink and Paint Club podcast. My name is JD, I'll be your host, and with me is my good best friend, Kyle.
Yo!
And joining us for the fourth week in a row, Mr. Brian Bear.
Yeah, Mr. Spacely, oh no! That's terrible.
Beautiful.
That was terrible, everybody.
But, yeah, so welcome to the show, and we are going to finally be wrapping up our Hanna-Barbera Road to WrestleMania month, where we've been taking a look at all of the very strange Hanna-Barbera WWE crossover films.
Just in time to miss WrestleMania because it was last night.
Yeah. WrestleMania been over for 2 days by the time this comes out.
Yeah.
But, you know.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, so we've seen WWE Superstars crossover Scooby-Doo twice, once with the Flintstones, and we're gonna round it out this week with WWE meets the Jetsons, the movie everyone was clamoring for.
Yep. This is probably the first time we've seen the Jetsons since the Jetsons movie came out in the early 90s.
Other than, like, the jokes they made in Harvey Birdman, but...
I was thinking about that while watching it, because, spoiler alert, apparently the Jetsons takes place 100 years from now?
See, that's the thing. They never specifically say what year it is, so they always say it's 100 years in the future, so they can, like, future-proof it.
I still feel like they should say, like, 1,000 years or something, because 100 years just sounds minuscule, like, in terms of progress. Right. Or maybe that's just me. I don't know. But
yeah. So,
we did go from flight to space travel within the same century. So
it's true. Technology's come a long way in the last 100 years. So who's to say what the next 100 years will hold? We might have flying cars by then.
But we'll all be so weak that a man can take over the world simply by being bigger than everybody.
It's true, because when robots do everything, human beings become their muscles go into atrophy, so they don't have to do anything.
It was a dime store Wall-E almost.
Yeah. So the basic gist of this movie is that in present day, the Big Show, who is the big villain of this movie, goes out in a snowstorm after being told not to because he wants to fight Sheamus, who we met in the last movie we reviewed. And is the only reason I know who that is. He gets frozen for 100 years until George Jetson, of all people, digs him out, and he is so appalled by... Big Show is so appalled by the fact that WWE has been turned into robot wrestling and not human wrestling, he decides he's going to take his anger out on the world.
That's a good summary.
That's basically what happens.
A few things. One, this movie, according to this movie, the Jetsons live in 2117.
If we're going from the present day to...
from when this movie came out.
Because they always say it's 100 years in the future, so it's...
Two, Orbit City is above Colorado.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up. Yeah, canonically, Jetsons live in Colorado now.
Yeah, the Jetsons live in Colorado. I guess several miles above Colorado.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong. My Simpsons knowledge, or my Jetsons knowledge is not up to snuff, but... is this the first time they ever go to the Earth's surface?
I don't know. I haven't watched a lot of, like, the old Jetsons, so I feel like maybe they've gone down to the planet once or twice.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, according to this movie, it's because the Earth. It was definitely like a climate change kind of like thing, because he goes down and it's covered in ice. So I mean, I always thought it was like a weird pollution thing. Like if you went down, it was just like toxic air or something. But
Yeah, it probably went into like the second ice age. Just like, well, let's just go like a couple miles up and just everybody lives in towers and stuff.
yeah,
The recent comic series, it's the whole world is flooded.
oh,
It's all underwater. They live in the sky castles.
That makes sense. But yeah, so with these crossover movies, we get, a smattering of WWE personalities. And honestly, out of all the 4 movies we watched this month, I feel like this is like the weakest grouping of personalities.
I couldn't recognize anybody.
I knew a couple of them just because of what little of wrestling I've watched over the last year. Like I know who Big Show was because he was a wrestler back in the day. I know who the Usos are. And it was kind of weird the fact they had Stardust and Dolph Ziggler voicing characters in this movie like robot versions of themselves, but they didn't have the human versions of them in it, which I thought was kind of weird.
It got cut for time.
And it was weird that there's a part in this movie where the Jetsons go back in time because they need to gather up the old superstars to come to the future to stop Big Show from taking over the world. And they're like, oh, well, the only way we're getting into the stadium is we need to go put on disguises to get in. So if we dress like the superstars, they'll let us in. So I recognize the fact that, Jane and Judy dress up as Charlotte and Becky Lynch. And Astro is fucking Kane.
I did like that. That was pretty funny.
And then George Jetson is Future Man.
Kane goes from being the villain in the first movie we watched to a cameo of Astro's costume.
And he's a robot.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true.
And of course, Vince McMahon is there too, because he's in all these movies.
Yes.
He gets a robot motorcycle at one point.
And loses his sleeves for some reason?
He tears his sleeves off, man.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He's gonna ride that hog. So yeah, this movie is kind of ridiculous, and
not like the others, huh?
I don't know. It's because it's like it's got that sci-fi ridiculousness in it. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because like what the things that actually got my attention were stuff that like obviously it was stuff that was more on the Jetsons side than the WWE side, but like story points were like, oh, they go to the surface of the Earth. Like I was like, oh, that's cool, and then like they really do question, like, oh, well, we press buttons all day. What happens when when that malfunctions? Or, there's a scene where George is driving and he's like, I'm going to switch to analog mode. And, like, a steering wheel comes up and, like, there's, like, a big puff of dust comes out of it and stuff. And I don't know. Like, that stuff to me was interesting, but all the WWE stuff just felt like, oh, Big Show, what are you doing here?
Yeah, and you bring kind of a good point with that in the sense that, like, had it been like the same exact plot, like change Big Show to like a caveman or something, and he somehow takes over the world basically the same way, I feel like it would be a much better Jetsons movie. Because you're right, it does touch on some stuff like, what actually happened to the Earth and like humanity has kind of fallen into apathy because, robots do everything for them. So since they can't walk 5 feet anymore. Yeah, there's a big scene where they go to Albuquerque, New Mexico to find the WWE All-Stars, and they can't walk out of the parking lot because it's not automated. And it's just this funny joke where you just see all the
the entire family just sort of dragging their feet on the ground.
Which, I mean, Harvey Birdman kind of made that same joke about 10 years ago, but I still thought it was funny.
It made me think of that because there's that like series of pictures that you'll find like on someone's Twitter or their Tumblr or something, and it's like George Jetson next to Harvey Birdman going like, "We're from the far off year of 2002," and Harvey Birdman looks at his calendar. Yeah, it says 2004. And the WWE stuff was just I'm super fatigued with it. It's just like, yeah, it's WWE guys. Like,
yeah, and especially with this one, I felt like other than like Sheamus and like what was his name? Who was the guy that was? I think Seth Rollins. Yeah. Seth Rollins complaining all the time. No one else had anything to do. Like the Usos didn't have anything to do. Alicia Fox didn't really have anything to do. Roman Reigns didn't really have anything to do.
But they had a robot smashing montage.
Yeah, but like for other than like, hey, we need to fill up the background with more WWE characters. They didn't really have any reason to be there.
Yeah, you can tell Big Show had a good time at least.
Yeah. And again, I want to compliment the WWE superstars that they're actors. Like, wrestling isn't real. Sorry, kids. So
what?
I mean,
spoiler alert! Come on.
Yeah.
What?
So, I mean, they're all actors. So like, at least everyone's voice performance was like really well done. I mean, Vince McMahon always does a really good job because he has a good cartoony voice as it is. And you're right, Big Show obviously had a very fun time being a bad guy in the future.
Yeah. If it didn't already exist, and it's been a long time since I've seen this, it would have been an interesting way to do a Flintstones Jetsons crossover, probably. Although I wouldn't see Fred as someone being evil, though.
I in terms of like a Flintstones crossover, it would have been funny if he like went down, like the part where he goes down to the ice and fights Big Show. If he like first he sees Fred and like, just
that would be funny.
But they already did the joke.
I know, it was in Billy and Mandy. Jesus.
Oh yeah.
It was Jake Steele.
Jeez, Jake Steele.
But see, that episode pisses me off because they do go into the future at the end, but aliens eat their brains, and I wish it was a Flintstones thing. Or Jetsons thing at the end.
Yeah.
That would have been funny. But,
one weird thing that, like, that bothered me was at the very beginning where Jetson finds Big Show and he brings him up to his office. There's this whole bit where he's like, I can't show you to Mr. Spacely because he says no surprises. And I'm like, really? That's going to be the reason you can't show him to Mr. Spacely? Like, I don't know. Like,
hey, look, we found a primitive man frozen in the thing and we reanimated him. I think that's pretty. That's
pretty big news.
Worthy
Mr.
of telling your boss.
Yeah, like during this thing that you authorized, we found this, and this is something. I don't know. It's big news, and he doesn't feel the need to tell Mr. Spacely. Although, at the end, he does go like, I should have told you when I found him.
Yeah. Hindsight's a bitch.
I did like... There were two parts that made me laugh, like, out loud. One is... he finds Big Show, he thaws him out, and he takes him home. And Big Show, like, Jetson comes into his apartment and he's like, family, I want you to meet Big Show. And like, Big Show comes in on the automated, like the self-moving little sidewalk conveyor belt or whatever through the door, and his head breaks through like the top of the door frame, but they don't have him like, fall to the ground or anything. They don't do anything. He just breaks through, and he's just
react at all.
Yeah, he doesn't react at all. He just continues talking. He's like, I'm here in the future, and that made me laugh. I'm like, that's funny. I like subtle jokes like that. I can't remember the other time that made me laugh. That's kind of how this movie is, I guess.
Yeah,
I like the guy giving him a hard time for parking.
Yeah. He's asking for $40.
Oh yeah, it's $40, and then it's where there's this running gag with Rosie the Robot where her eyes start glowing to make it seem like she's like evil or something.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time they do it, it made me laugh because she tucks in Big Show into bed because there's this whole montage where Big Show just doesn't quite get the future.
Well, they sent him through a conveyor belt to get him ready for bed.
Mm-hmm. And another like funny subtle thing is like one of the automated things was they feed them spaghetti and they just throw spaghetti all over Big Show's face. But when they do the like sort of reaction shot where like Big Show's just looking at the viewer like oh no and he's got spaghetti all over him. A little robotic arm comes up with a napkin. It just dabs his face really quickly and then disappears. I thought that was funny. But, Rosie the Robot just tucks him in and then says something along the lines of, like, I've got my eye on you. And then, like, her eyes
she turns the lights out, says that her eyes glow, and then she just backs away slowly.
I'm like, that's funny.
And then I did enjoy the part where they go back in time and she, the parking attendant like turns around and is like, holy crap, you're a robot from the future. And she's like, yeah, I'm here to enslave your kind.
Yeah. So like you can tell like the other ones, you can tell they had fun and were trying to make the best of this kind of situation. But
yeah, and and again, this is like I felt like this is kind of like in line with the Flintstones one, where because the style of it is more cartoony, they're allowed to take a lot more liberties with how goofy they can make the story and the WWE personalities, and even the wrestling again is like it's not like the real wrestling like Scooby-Doo was trying to make it, but it's really more cartoon physics involved.
I'm sad that they didn't push it further, like with the Flintstones one, because I remember we were talking about how like the Flintstones one had all these like great drawings and funny animation and stuff in it, and this just lacked it. Like
it felt pretty stale.
Yeah, I was like, come on, guys! Like you were able to pull it off with the Flintstones one. Why couldn't you do it with this? Like the styles are pretty similar. Like
that's the thing too. It's weird because they have similar styles, but you could tell the difference between the two.
Oh,
somehow.
For sure. Yeah, the Flintstones one felt a lot looser in style. Like they could go off model a lot more. This one definitely feels a lot more stiff, a lot more like we need to stay on model, and it needs to adhere to this specific style.
Yeah, I don't know why though.
I don't know, man, but
yeah,
but
everyone's got that weird like George Jetson has that like Homer Simpson kind of 5 o'clock shadow line like on his face, but his chin doesn't have that discoloration like Homer's does, but everyone has that like little line in. I remember finding that kind of strange. Yeah,
I did start to notice that after a while. Like every male character has pretty much the same face. I mean, when the part where he goes after Spacely gives him the assignment to go down to the planet, he goes through the docking bay and knocks over all these boxes, and the two guys that reprimand him for him literally have the same nose and mouth and the little 5 o'clock shadow line along their face. So it's like, other than the hair, it's like, what is differentiating these two character designs?
Oh, and the wrestlers looked really similar too. Like they're really like Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins.
Oh,
really similar.
Oh, thank you. I honestly kind of kept forgetting which one was which, and it's weird because they drew the Usos as like twins. Like, so they look exactly the same, when in real life they're not really that similar looking.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. But, I mean, that even adds to the thing. It's like, their character designs are so similar, and they have little to no impact on the plot. It's like, so what was the point of them being there?
Yeah. It just felt like, I think you could just feel this sort of fatigue by this this is the fourth installment of this this crossover series that you can tell they were just kind of tired by this point, or at least it felt like it.
Yeah, I feel like if WWE wants to keep doing these crossover films, then I think they need to take a break, because I think we've gotten pretty much 1 or 2 a year for the last couple of years. So, I mean, just give us some time, guys.
Well, that's the thing. Like, we go from, the Scooby-Doo one where it's like, oh, it's WWE land. We're WWE-ing it up all over the place. Then we go to the Flintstones where it's like, here's the birth of WWE, but other than that, it's this sort of bizarre Flintstones episode. And
it feels very true to the Flintstones. So.
Then we have this Scooby-Doo wacky races insanity that was last week. And then it's like it's almost like we're back to square one, where it's like, oh, WWE, it's all great and everything. I love WWE.
Oh,
Don't
yeah,
you love WWE? Like,
yeah, that whole ending where they're like, I'm gonna watch all these old ones 1,000 times, and aren't these wrestlers great? Yeah, it's like, I get it, guys, but the Flintstones did it a lot better, where it's just like, these are just regular dudes who happen to, look and sound like the wrestlers, and they have wrestling powers and shit.
We're missing a movie, though.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Surf's Up.
Surf's Up. Oh my god.
I own that. I have not watched it yet.
I don't want to. I didn't even enjoy the first Surf's Up. Why would I want to watch the sequel?
I remember liking the first one. I thought it had the misfortune of coming out when like 5 other Penguin movies came out.
Yeah.
But I liked the fact that it was a fully CG animated documentary. Like, it had the whole handheld camera thing, and like confessionals and interviews with people and stuff. I thought that was really interesting. I have not seen Wave Mania, which is what it's called.
That's another thing. It's like, at what point did someone say, hey, we're going to revive this, 10-year-old film that anyone barely remembers and add wrestlers to it?
No. I guess you can do the same thing, but put Sherlock Holmes, played by Johnny Depp, in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I have my own problems with Sherlock Gnomes, but that's another day.
I'm glad you picked up on the...
Dude, I work at a movie theater right now. I've been seeing Sherlock Gnomes crap for the last 2 months. And it's awful. But yeah, so honestly, I don't know where I would put this on if I had to rank the 4 movies we watched.
Bottom.
Yeah, I put it 3rd.
Yeah, 3rd or 4th. I'd probably like the Flintstones one. I would rewatch that movie. I thought it was fun and the art was great. The Scooby-Doo ones, honestly, I'd probably put them neck and neck. They're pretty... I mean, maybe the racing one more, but just because of how goofy it was. But
I'd put the racing one above it because of, A, how goofy it was, and B, I hate celebrity groveling, so, it's less of that. And I'd put this 3rd because, like I said, there was some interesting stuff on the Jetsons side. But, and then the Scooby-Doo, the first one we watched, I'd put it at the 4th, just because it's again, just groveling, this WWE is so cool.
I'll give this movie bonus points because I don't have to use my brain to figure out some bullshit that I'll never be able to figure out.
Oh, there's no mystery involved.
Yeah. There isn't a mystery.
The last one was just, way too much.
Yeah.
So contrived.
It was. This one, it was pretty simple, I would say. It's just weird because it's there's just a wrestler comes along, and because he's bigger than everybody, he takes over the world.
Yeah. And honestly, I think this has the same problem that the Scooby-Doo movies had, in the sense that it's too long. It doesn't need to be an hour and a half. The Flintstones did enough in basically 45 to 50 minutes. The Flintstones one is definitely the shortest one. And they did a lot with that time, but I don't understand why, especially the Scooby-Doo racing movie. There's no reason that movie needed to be as long as it was.
Oh yeah, I was
by the hour.
I was sort of checked out by the end of this one.
Yeah.
Basically, it's just a big showdown with all these wrestling stars in Big Show and his robot army, which I will give props to the wrestlers because they all voiced their robot counterparts.
Yeah.
And so it's just like Big Show and Alicia Fox going, I am a robot. I am a wrestling robot. I'm going to beat you up. It is robot wrestling.
Yeah, and again, they got the voices of the wrestlers that voice their robot counterparts, but there's no like human counterparts. So it's like couldn't get them for that, or I guess they didn't want to fill the background with even more wrestlers that they didn't know what to do with.
Well, that was the thing. Like you said before, like Roman Reigns and the Usos didn't really have a lot to do. And Alicia Fox, I guess, was there because we need, a female wrestler, but like,
always needs to be one.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So
it's weird that I did like that there were wrestling robots of wrestlers that didn't show up for it. Like there was an Undertaker robot and the Kane robot, but they did not speak. It was just. They were there.
They blew their Undertaker budget last movie.
They did. I'm not coming back.
Yeah, exactly. Kyle, do you have any parting thoughts for us?
I'm wondering what the next one will be.
Speed Buggy.
It's either gonna be.
Oh no, Yogi Bear. It needs to be Yogi Bear.
Oh my god! If the WWE stars were all like weird forest animal versions of them. Like Big Show shows up and he's just a bunny.
And then Ranger Smith calls in Vince McMahon to round up all the animals to put them in animal wrestling.
Ranger McMahon, come here. Oh, we forgot. There's two Vince McMahons in this movie.
Yeah, there's one of them's Mr. McMoon.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone has like space puns.
Yes, so we've had Mr. McMagma, Mr. McMahon, and Mr. McMoon.
We could have Vince McMantis, and he could be a bug.
He could.
Oh, that reminds me. I just want to point this out that I think all these movies are in canon with each other because at one point Vince McMahon
he says the talking dog thing.
Yeah, it's like this is you wouldn't believe this isn't the first time I've seen a talking dog. It's like so. Despite the fact that all of these movies have drastically different art styles, I'm guessing that means that Vince McMahon remembers the time he met Scooby-Doo.
Well, you do remember Hanna-Barbera did have a lot of those like crossover cartoons,
right?
Where, like they had like Laugh Olympics and what was the other one? There was like Yogi's Treasure Hunt or something like that,
right.
Where they would have Yogi Bear on a team, but then Josie and the Pussycats are on another team, and
see, man, I don't like Laugh Olympics. Doesn't make sense to me. You got Shaggy on one of those teams. How is he not freaking out? There's a giant talking bear.
That's true. Like I don't know, man. I'm really high. I joined the Olympics.
Yeah. So, apparently there's a through plot, or not a through plot. I guess there's just continuity in these movies.
Well, you could say, I mean, we got Mr. McMahon of the future and the past, and I guess Mr. McMahon can somehow change his bodily structure to be Jetson style for the present.
Okay, so I guess that obviously means that the next movie, that all three McMahons throughout history are going to team up. And
if I were in charge of that, that's how I would do it. Vince McMahon will be the villain of my next Hanna-Barbera WWE crossover. They team up, past, present, and future. And
they'll say starring Vince McMahon, and Vince McMahon.
George, Fred, and Scooby-Doo have to team up to get...
We're going to make the Hanna-Barbera WWE Avengers movie.
Yeah.
I hope it's Yacky Doodle versus WWE. That would be amazing.
Yacky Doodle? Oh... Shit. Yacky Doodle was the duck, right? And that was where... that was like Dick Dastardly's like original cartoon, right?
I think so.
Was that first or was Wacky Races first?
I don't know, man. It's hard to keep all this stuff straight.
Because Wacky Races was sort of a crossover, sort of, because they had like Penelope Pitstop, who had her own series.
I thought her show was a spin-off of Wacky Races.
Oh yeah, Penelope Pitstop in Peril. I think
It's the Perils of Penelope Pitstop. Why do I know this?
I don't know.
Because we all watched Cartoon Network.
That's true.
In the mid '90s, and it was nothing but Hanna-Barbera reruns. And
hey man, snow days were great because of that. I could watch Scooby-Doo and the Flintstones.
Yeah,
and I gotta say, man, I've watched like old Flintstones within the last year, and that shit still holds up. That's
still
funny.
Remember Underdog and Rocky and Bullwinkle on Cartoon Network?
Does Warner Brothers own Jay Ward yet? Who owns that?
Possibly. I don't know.
Wait, no, DreamWorks owns Jay Ward because they made Peabody and Sherman. They own Jay Ward.
And then they made the Rocky and Bullwinkle short that I guess was never released.
Oh yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Well, no WWE crossovers for them then. No. Dudley Do-Right meets WWE.
George.
I'll get you, Big Show.
Kyle, I would kill to see George in the Jungle.
Oh God.
Oh my
Mr.
God.
McMahon's like, George, watch out for that tree.
I paid good money to hear Vince McMahon say that. I just want to know if Vince McMahon because he's kind of older. I want to know if he watched the original Hanna-Barbera stuff back in the day when it first came out, and if he just does these because it's like a dream come true. Like, holy crap, I get to act along Scooby-Doo.
I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
My dad was telling me about Frankenstein Jr. and shit like that.
That's awesome.
My dad remembers old cartoons.
That's funny.
My parents, anytime I brought up an old Hanna-Barbera thing, they would remember it, but then just be like, all they remember is the name. My mom knew who Josie and the Pussycats were, but she didn't know anything else. But then and my dad's favorite cartoon was Roadrunner, so none of this stuff was Roadrunner, so we just didn't know
who
Squiddly Diddly was, or the Hair Bear Bunch, or
the
Hardy Har Har and the Lion
Impossibles.
Guy. The Impossibles.
The Robo Stooges.
The Robo Stooges. God, they made 500 million cartoons. My brother gave to me for Christmas a couple of years ago an entire a coffee table book that was just the history of Hanna-Barbera, and you just look through and you're just like, good God, they signed off on everything.
They sure did. They threw everything at the wall until something stuck.
Yeah, and they would reuse ideas. Shaggy wasn't the only Shaggy.
Yeah.
No, there's that guy. There's that guy in Jabberjaw.
There's a guy in Jabberjaw. There's was one in Speed Buggy.
Yeah.
There's one in Josie and the Pussycats.
Well, I mean, every one of those every one of those shows is just a spin-off of Scooby-Doo, or
That's true.
A different version of it. Because Scooby-Doo's popular. Fuck it, let's just pump out these teenager solving mystery shows.
Yeah.
What's the Asian detective guy?
Oh, the Chan Clan.
Yeah, the Amazing Chan Clan. I think was the Chan Clan his family.
I don't know. I've never actually seen it. I've just seen the episode of Harvey Birdman where they sue for copyright.
No.
Yeah.
There's
They sue Jabberjaw.
Yeah, Jabberjaw, who's just curly who's a shark.
He sure is. That's who I want. I want to see them cross over with Jabberjaw now.
The only thing I really liked of Jabberjaw was the music video by
Pain.
By Pain that came out in the 90s. It was this ska version of Jabberjaw. It was who's gonna save the world? Who's gonna save the day?
I love that song.
From Ahab crabs who stealing evil eels with evil rays.
It hurts my heart that they didn't make a show out of that.
Yeah, and Jabberjaw had a nose ring and stuff. I really liked the design.
Punk as fuck.
Yeah, but he still had the curly voice.
Yeah.
He looked badass, but still would go no respect.
And speaking of old Hanna-Barbera shit that nobody really remembers, I like Secret Squirrel from Two Stupid Dogs.
I thought,
So that didn't get a spin-off either.
I liked the Two Stupid Dogs version more than the original Secret Squirrel.
Yeah, for
or
sure.
Inch Eye Private Eye.
Private Eye. There's
Private
see, Warner Brothers is a gold mine of WWE crossovers just sitting here. You have
Inch
so
Eye
much.
Private Eye. It's like, oh no, I've shrunk the WWE All Stars. They're all inch high now.
We gotta get Vince McMahon on the phone right now.
What was there was one that was really just like a Scooby-Doo like 2. It was just they just fully ripped it off again. It was called like it was like Goofy and the Goobers or something. Like
Yeah, it had like the gray dog with the dumb hat on.
yeah.
Yeah, I forget what it was called.
But it was just straight up Scooby-Doo again.
Well, that's the thing. Hanna-Barbera didn't have shame, man. That like they made everything like
That's
and
true.
So it was so cheap to produce. They're like, if something fails, if one thing succeeds and 10 things fail, they can easily make their money back.
The Funky Phantom.
Were they responsible for the Rubik's Cube cartoon?
I don't know.
Does anyone remember them?
Yes.
It was like
Very
an
vaguely.
alien.
Ugly ass troll face.
Yeah, it was a Rubik's Cube, and then like Yoda's face came out of it, and like that was a cartoon.
I will.
Rubik, the Amazing Cube.
Yeah.
It was made by Ruby Spears.
Okay.
Right.
See, yeah, Ruby Spears is just as guilty for. Though I think they did more like stuff based on toys.
Yeah, because they did the Mega Man cartoon.
Like Mega Man and were they responsible for Care Bears and
Maybe.
like that stuff? And then there's also like Filmation that did
God, Filmation. They did like He-Man and stuff.
they also did the Brady Kids.
Oh God.
Do you that was something I remember because it was for some reason played. Do you remember during the summer they had on Nickelodeon they would have Stickly?
I love
And,
Stickly.
I remember his. Oh, this is a funny story. That they had that little jingle where he would tell his address. Where he's like, "Write to me, Stickly."
Oh yeah.
Like I remember the whole song, and a few years ago at like 5 a.m. I wake up to a text message from one of my friends going in like our little group text. Hey, what's Stickly's address? And because I know that song by heart, I put in Stickly, P.O. Box 963, New York City, New York State, 1010108 or something like that. And then I just get a text from my third friend going like, God damn it. Like, what the fuck? Why are you texting each other at 5:30 in the morning about fucking Stickly?
Why not, man?
But it was one of those things where it was like Nick in the afternoon, and they kind of knew that it was during the summer, so not a lot of kids were tuning in. So they would play like the Brady Kids cartoon, which was like Brady Bunch but without the parents.
Yeah.
And they had like some pandas there, and like a dog and like a bird.
Well, it was probably like what Cartoon Network was early days. They probably got it for nothing and said, "Fuck it, we got it. Let's put it on the air and fill up time."
I remember they had that and Batfink, which was like a weird Batman parody with like the most racist sidekick. It was like a guy named like Kung Pao, I think, or something. It was just this really like like Asian sidekick where you're just like, ooh shit.
Nickelodeon used to play like Tintin and Gumby and.
I remember, yeah.
And
a lot of this
Gadget.
podcast has been, do you remember? Because this movie has no substance.
Yeah, so
nothing to talk about in it.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, guys, this one's kind of forgettable. I mean, it's got the Jetsons crossover has some fun parts, but for overall, I think its worst crime is just being the most forgettable of the four.
Yeah. I mean, it's worse being sort of mediocre and forgettable than it is being like totally bad but completely crazy and off the wall. Like
at least Curse of the Speed Demon tried to be weird.
Yeah. this like had hints of it, and like I said, I liked seeing the Jetsons stuff, but by the end, I was bored. I was looking at my watch, like, oh my god.
There's an interesting Jetsons movie surrounded by wrestlers.
Yeah,
dragging it down. So there you go.
Yep.
But
yeah, I definitely would put it third, but like, because I don't like this first Scooby-Doo one, but
I gotcha.
But
good times.
It ain't much to write home about.
That's fair. But guys, I think that about wraps up Road to WrestleMania month. I hope you enjoyed this trudge through these very odd crossover films. I mean, I at least enjoyed getting a chance to check these out because they've just been these very odd things that pop up on Tumblr every now and then in GIF form, and it's just like, what is this craziness going on? And now we know, so there you go.
Next month we'll do the Tom and Jerry movies.
All 90 of those.
Oh god, just all the How many are there? There's only 2 of them right now.
2? What are you talking about? There's like 15.
Well, I assume Kyle meant the crossover movies.
I'm still talking about crossover because they meet like the Wizard of Oz twice. Shit. They meet Merlin. They meet Willy Wonka. They meet a bunch of public domain characters too, like Sherlock and.
Well, all right then.
Robin Hood and
good times. Well, maybe one day if the fans demand it. But until then, I think I need to take a break from cartoon crossover movies with absurd things. What
about cartoons crossing over with each other?
That I'm totally down for.
Will we watch the Jetsons meet the Flintstones?
Maybe in the future, the Jetsons future with jetpacks and shit.
Tom and Jerry meet Johnny Quest. That one just kind of came out recently.
Oh yeah, I know about that.
That exists.
Weird. Yeah, but yeah. So I think we're about done here. Brian, thanks for being on with us this month. I know it's getting you to watch all of these.
It's been fun. I've had a great time watching WWE cartoons. If you ever want me again, just let me know.
Our door is always open, man. We are always, in need of guest hosts, so you're more than welcome. And Kyle, you're a good boy.
I think I'd love to come back and we just shoot the shit for the most obscure cartoons we can name.
I'm down, man. Let's do
Super
it.
Dave.
Super Dave.
I remember the Super Dave cartoon. Mine will always be, my obscure cartoon will always be Slacker Cats.
Oh, Jesus. All right. Thanks, guys, for listening. We'll catch you next week.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Ink and Paint Club podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can catch a new episode every week. Also be sure to follow us on our Facebook and Twitter so you can keep up with the show. Links are in the description. We'll see you next week.